Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the financial expert, managing director of DNG Financial Services and co-founder of Connect to Grow, Cian Carolan. Cian, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks a million for having me. Delighted to be on.
First of all, tell me a bit about your journey to end up where you are today. What made you pursue this field of a financial advisor and mortgage broker and everything?
Well, how it's gotten to this point, there's very little correlation to where it all began in a lot of ways. So if I kind of rewind back to school, right? So wasn't particularly studious, went to a good school, very lucky to, but wasn't particularly academic, or certainly was probably surrounded by a lot of people that were very bright, very ambitious, and in a lot of cases probably knew what they wanted to do in life.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Drumcondra, over on the north side of Dublin, and I went to school in a school called Gonzaga College in Ranelagh, which is on the south side of Dublin. So that was generally a bus across every morning, hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and a half in the evening time, and then if that didn't work out, it was a bus and a Lewis. So it was a bit of it was a nice journey across Dublin most days, and there was good learnings in that. But yeah, I probably went through school with very little idea of what I really wanted to do. I probably would have been encouraged from home to go down the route of teaching. My dad was a teacher, both my sisters are teachers, and I suppose I probably didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then went into a course that was probably suited to that, in that I did an arts degree in college, and I studied music and Irish, and they were my two specialist areas, if you like. And a natural progression out of that probably would have been teaching. But I go back to school again. I mean, on my CAO, oh, sorry, that's my speaker.
You're good.
I'll actually switch that off.
She tries to be included in the conversation.
It's not even Alexa, who is it? We'll turn that off. Yeah, so if you looked at my CAO, my choice of what I wanted to do after school, there was physiotherapy, occupational therapy, there was teaching, there was arts, and it was my sixth choice on my CAO that I ended up going with in the end. So
the common theme there I see is working with people, right? Helping people.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it probably was, but and that's probably where I've settled in life, in that I'm like to think I'm pretty good with people, and I think I'm pretty good at building a trust and kind of building relationships pretty quickly with people, to the point that they're happy to kind of be guided by me, I suppose. But yeah, that was probably a common theme, and like that was ingrained in me very early on. My first ever job, I worked in, I don't know if you know, Arnott's department store in Henry Street. So I would have started there on the 5th of December 2005, so I was 15 at the time, and very young to start working, but worked through Christmas and summers during school. And then when I was in college, I worked right throughout any shifts I could get during the week, and then weekends. And I suppose hard work ingrained early on, dealing with people, dealing with the public from a very young age. And you build a skill set and an armory when you're doing that, and when you're exposed to that pretty young. But nonetheless, while I was learning a lot along the way, and probably didn't realise how much those early learnings would stand to me in later life, I still hadn't a clue what I wanted to do. And then I went through my 4 years of college, did relatively okay out of that, did okay out of that, and then still didn't know what I wanted to do, and then managed to get a job in a bank. And that was pretty much the point that I most definitively said, I really don't know what I want to do. I certainly, it's not that I didn't want to be there.
How old were you at this point?
I was 20, it was 2012. I was probably just gone 22. So I worked in a bank, did a very entry level job, really lowly paid job. And I was and I made a lot of good friends, still some friends from there, but spent a lot of my time thinking, geez, I really need to sort my life out. I spent a lot of my early 20s into my mid 20s saying to myself, what do I want to do? I need to do something. I felt like I had more to offer than what I was doing, but ultimately with no direction, that starts to grind on you a little bit. And then I felt, well, the answer was to earn more money in the same industry, and that's what I did. So I moved to a different job in a different bank, and it was a marginal step up on all fronts, pay and a little bit more responsibility, and back to dealing with the public again. But I still didn't like my environment. I'm not particularly good at being told what to do. Don't particularly like being told what to do. I tend to get into something, find a direction that I like to take it. I like to find a way that I like to deal with people.
Bring your own initiative to it.
Yeah, and I just ultimately not particularly good at being told what to do. I don't like that kind of rigid, structured, this is how you deal with this scenario, this is how you conduct your conversation. I like to kind of work on my own instincts when I'm dealing with people. But again, as I say, in that job, I really didn't know where I was going, albeit I was earning a little bit more money. And in amongst all of that, and I was probably 24 when this came to pass, it was transitioning from that first bank job to that second bank job. I found out that at the time, Louise, my now wife, girlfriend at the time, became pregnant on her first child. And that was the moment where, that was the ultimate moment where I said, fuck, we're really up against it here. Whatever about being in your early 20s and not knowing what you want to do, actually that's not that bad a position to be in, right? And actually reflecting back on it, didn't need to be as worried as I probably was at the time about where I was going.
Which is good advice for anyone that's in a similar boat right now.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are confused and they feel like they should have their shit figured out, but you don't.
I look back and I say, geez, I was putting so much pressure on myself. I mean, I think I was constantly putting pressure on myself. It was pressure in college to, get friendly with girls and figure my way out with girls, and I made all sorts of mistakes along the way, not knowing what I was doing there. I made put a lot of pressure on myself to try and balance college work with, at the time, 2 part-time jobs, and trying to make as much money as I could from those, and then getting into my first bank job, if you like, and getting into it and then realizing, okay, well, surely this isn't it, and then to the next one, and more money was never the answer, and then you're kind of like, well,
and there's never enough money either. But
no, 100%. All it does is move the dial, and it does very little else other than that in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, like I would look back and I kind of say, I wish I hadn't put so much social pressures on myself, so much academic pressure on myself, so much pressure to figure out my future career.
Just go with it.
Earlier on, enjoy it, right? But then I took the choice away from myself, largely because, as I say, Rian was on his way, my eldest child, right? He's now 9, and he came along, and so I no longer had the choice to be able to say to myself, do you know what, it actually doesn't matter if you haven't figured it out, there's plenty of time to figure it out ahead. Well, actually no, because you've just signed up to a pretty big contract here, and you now are no longer just thinking about you're no longer just thinking about you and Louise. You now have a pretty serious commitment on your hands coming at you. And that's what forced bank job 1 into bank job 2. And then I was 15 months in that second bank job wondering, what am I going to do? Still not earning enough money to be able to buy a house, to rent anywhere, to raise a kid. And so I look back on this on LinkedIn recently enough. You can actually look back and see every job you've ever applied for through LinkedIn. And like, if I took a screenshot of it, and I probably should do it someday, if I took a screenshot of it, I was applying for jobs that I had no interest in. I was grossly underqualified.
Been
to
there,
do.
done that.
And
You're just shooting your shot, hoping something sticks.
Yeah, and it was one person gave me a real opportunity at a time that I needed it the most. That's when I went into become a mortgage broker for the first time in a company called Finance One. And it was quite an interesting conversation because he picked up the phone and his first question was, I'm really curious to know why you felt it was appropriate to apply for this job. I was like, oh, what job? Because I'd applied for multiple jobs in a really short space of time in utter panic, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I lost track of who had applied.
Yeah, you don't even know who's calling.
I didn't know who was calling. I didn't know what I'd applied for, and I just said, "Look, there's a few gaps here." And he said, "It's a financial advisor job in a company called Finance One." And I said, "Oh right, okay." And he said, "You've no experience in this space," and I said, "Oh yeah, well yeah." I said I probably just clicked, and whatever, and it wasn't a particularly great start to conversation, but we had coincidentally gone to the same school, and he was curious, and he said, "Look, I'd like to meet you for a coffee," and then just took off from there. We met and we kind of clicked, and a different job that I was more qualified for came along, and the rest is history. So I ended up in a space where I was dealing directly with the public, talking about things that I understood, and I was able to, I suppose, digest people's concerns, issues, and provide real life solutions to people. And fast forward 8 years, I've probably played some small part in putting several hundred people into their first homes, or help people move from their first home to their second home, and that's been very satisfying. So I'm very lucky that I've gone from a space where I didn't know what I wanted to do, and had that lightning bolt moment where I needed to all of a sudden get my shit together. Kid is coming along, and there's been nothing like that motivation to really kick into gear. And I've never been I look back and I say I've always been a hard worker, but I've never had the direction and the purpose that I've had over the last 8 years. And it's terribly satisfying to be doing something that you've a real passion for. Yes, it's financially rewarding, and you get to do lovely nice things and all that. There's a lot of nice stuff that come along with the gig, but the fundamentals are you're getting to help people, and that's very satisfying. And then I get to do every single day I wake up and I'm like, I am itching to get back at it. On the weekend, I'm trying to sneak my laptop open.
Even on holidays, I've noticed you always have your work stuff with you, and you're always trying to stay on top of things.
Yeah, because like anyone that picks up the phone to me, I see it as I'm giving them my commitment to getting them a solution, to getting them from A to B. And just because I'm taking a holiday doesn't, I still feel that ongoing commitment. But it's not an unhealthy, well, maybe it is you could argue it's maybe a little bit of an unhealthy obsession, right? But when you like doing something so much, when it gives so much to other people, and when it gives so much to me, it's very hard to not want to do it. It's a very fortunate position to be in, to do something that you want to do at every opportunity. And the lines are blurred. I help so many people that I know personally. There's very little that I do outside of work that doesn't eventually filter into my work. As in people that I play rugby with, or people that I sing with, people that
You sing?
Shouldn't have said no. I would have. I came from a fairly musical family, and it was just music around you as a child, and so there's a group of friends that we were in a choir in college together, that we've kind of managed to form another group outside of college that we've sustained over the years, and we come together. Now it's very infrequent because we've all grown up and had kids and have responsibilities, and we don't get to do it as often. But yeah, we come together. And
do you play the piano across the room?
Yeah, I do. I played the piano a lot when I was a good bit younger. it's very difficult when you have 3 kids pulling at you, and
I can
every time you
imagine.
sit down the piano, they want to hammer the piano.
Mm.
But if it's nowadays, if I get a rare moment where there's no one else around, I lift the lid, I hit a few keys, and you kind of get into a moment where nothing else is in the mind, and you can be something a little bit different and have a bit of a mess around. I like to figure if I've heard something on the radio, if I've heard a new song on Spotify, I like sitting down and trying to figure it out on the piano. And it's messy, but it's very enjoyable, and that's my
Meditation.
That's kind of my, yeah, it's kind of my I don't meditate, I don't pray, I don't read. I listen to audiobooks, I listen to podcasts, I sit down at the piano and I tinkle with the keys, and that's kind of my downtime generally. Yeah.
How do you build that trust with your potential clients in an industry where people are arguably very cautious?
Yeah, and people are skeptical about brokers as well a lot of the time, in that,
There's a lot at stake,
there's a
right?
lot at stake.
You're putting your trust into someone's hands with something that is arguably the biggest financial decision of your life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's actually, do you know what? It's not about the interest rate. This becomes it all circles back to relationship management. People do business with people. People do business with people they trust. And I can't work miracles, so I don't always get people the outcome they want. But what I always do is give them real clarity very early on about what is possible, what's not possible. And if I say something is possible, and if I tell them I'm going to be able to deliver for them on it, I'll do it and I'll get it done. And then it becomes a results-based relationship. Like, you deliver on what you say you're going to deliver, you get them the result, and for a short period of time you're the best person in the world for them. And then they get on with their life, and eventually they might come back to you for other advice. They might want to talk about financial planning or planning for their retirement, and they've had a few kids, and they come back to you because you've gained that trust with them. But there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brokers that do exactly what I do around the country, and we all do the same thing, and the point of difference is that relationship piece, because I can't give them anything different to what another broker or bank can give them. But what I can give them is a service that makes them feel comfortable around that big financial decision that they're making. That, you might only buy a house once or twice in your life. Planning for your retirement is a very, very powerful exercise when you're taking someone through it. When you're getting into something that's so personal and so important to people, it's all about the trust, and they want to make sure that it's confidence. I'm giving them confidence that I know what I'm doing. You don't need to worry about anything, and when I need something from you, I'll come to you, and otherwise just leave it in my hands. And that's just people management.
Do you meet with them for their first initial conversation, I suppose, in an office, or do you often just meet up with them in for a coffee or in a casual setting?
This week alone, I've done all 3, right? So take the last 2 weeks. Saturday 2 weeks ago, I met a couple in my house. Now, I do happen to know them, so it's not that unusual, right? But so I've met people in my house, I've met people in their house, I've met people in an office boardroom environment, and I'll meet people over the laptop, Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever way people want to deal with me, I'll deal with them. But there's nothing like pressing the flesh and sitting down with someone and having that coffee, and then you really kind of get to break down the barriers, and they get to know you, you get to know them.
I think that's an important factor, is getting to know you on a personal level more so than on the professional, because like, I want to understand who you are as a father. I want to understand who you are as a man. Like, what do you do for fun? How do you spend your time? Like, what does your life look like? And then I'm like, okay, I can trust this guy with my money, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because from the outside in, often the perception is you've got everything, your life is in order, you've got your shit together,
that's the image.
You got your house, you've got your kids, you've got your lovely wife, you got the nice car, everything, right? But no one sees the heavy lifting in the background. No one sees, you might get home at a obnoxiously late hour, you've missed the kids' dinner, you've missed putting them to bed, and I spend more of my time looking after clients, and sometimes my priorities are a bit skewed. Like, from the outside in, it looks perfect, but what did I read yesterday? A lot of people want the prize without paying the price, and there's no two ways about it. Like, when you're this involved in doing what I'm doing, there's a price, and there's always a price with it. But yeah, no, like, I've a very, very happy home environment, and I'm absolutely blessed that although I work with my wife in DNG Financial Services, we spend a lot of time apart. The days I'm in the office might not be the days Louise is in the office. The days I'm working from home, we've always got something different going on. But and although we're all doing the same thing, Louise gives me a lot of scope to be able to do more on my side, and she carries a lot of the burden at the home life. And I don't know how she does it, because I come home and I'm just like, I don't know how she manages to switch between the two existences. But it's a challenge. But look, always from the outside in, Instagram is nothing but misleading.
It is. It's a highlight reel of your life.
Yeah, it's the bits that you want to show for whatever reason, but in reality, and it is good, but it's
a tool for sure.
It's hard work. Yeah, it
is. Yeah. What role do you play as managing director of DNGFS?
Well, it's an ever evolving role. I suppose, in short, been tasked with setting up a financial services business for an estate agency group where they didn't have that over the last, call it, decade or so. So I've come in and I've set up a mortgage brokerage. I've brought someone in to run that for me. We've set up a financial planning division because there's a massive gap in the market, and there's a massive requirement from people in the market to have a really strong financial advisor helping them through life with their finances. So I saw a gap with that, and I brought in a really good friend of mine that I've worked with for the last 12 years to run that for me. And then we've just, after only in the last week, launching a corporate services division where we'll go to small, medium, large companies, and we'll go in and we'll manage their pension schemes. We'll look after their employees' finances. We'll offer our full suite of services to those companies and their employees. So my job overall is to make sure we get those businesses off the ground, or those divisions off the ground, and we run a profitable business. But ultimately, it goes back to the people piece. I'm very much driven about managing to look after as many people as we can. So my drive every day is to try and capture as many new clients as possible, so that we can help as many new people on their road to buying their first home, moving house, be it planning for retirement, whatever it might be. So yeah, I suppose I do a bit of everything within the business, but ultimately my job has been to start it up over the last 6 to 12 months and bring it towards profitability. It
seems like the driving factor that gets you up every day is that purpose of achieving all those things you talk about. But what's the most difficult aspect of what you do? What's the one thing that you fucking hate? And maybe hate is a strong word, but you dislike.
Yeah, it's
because it doesn't matter what you do in life. It doesn't matter how glamorous you think your job is. Even if you're a professional football player, there's going to be things about it that you severely do not want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably nothing within the job itself, because I would say the thing that's most challenging, because I can't say there's many elements of my life that I particularly dislike, right?
That's a good thing,
right? So I'm pretty fortunate with that, but probably it's more just it's more the my personal life element of it, where I talk about the price you pay, right? So to do what I do and to try and do it as well as I can't do something half-heartedly, right? So I have to I have to get it to the point where we are exceeding expectations. We are delivering. I'm delivering more than I should be delivering. I just have this obsession with just being as good as I can be at what I'm doing, right?
If you're gonna do something, do it properly.
Yeah, and I like there's a confidence that comes with that, and there's a confidence that's needed to deliver that. The big thing then is I let everything else suffer. So I come home and I've contributed nothing to the household. I go back, I say, I probably haven't seen the kids much during the week. I don't like that I allow myself to make those compromises.
So do you think that you haven't achieved that balance between work and family?
I think since I've made the move to DNG Financial Services, I definitely have gotten a far better balance.
Right.
So Louise will say it, like I've seen my kids more in the last 16, 17 months than I would have ever seen them. I've dropped them and picked them up from school more than I've ever done it before. Like there could have been instances where I went months and months and months and wouldn't have done a school drop off or a school pickup. There would have been weeks where I've gone Monday to Friday and I haven't seen the kids awake in my previous role, and that's largely my doing. And it was something when I came away from that environment, I kind of said, I'm not going to allow that
To happen
come
ever
along
again.
with me here. And I kind of drew somewhat of a bit of a boundary with it. And I would say that I carried a lot of guilt with that because, as you see, like big highlights in a year, like Christmas or birthdays, and you kind of take them, it's where you take stock and you look and you kind of say, jeepers, I really need to pull my socks up here. I can't allow them get to the point of growing up and moving on while being absent along the way, right? So I suppose in the last year and a half, I've made a really conscious effort. I work at home more than I've ever worked at home, and that's important because I do the school drop-offs and pickups. I put deliberate slots in my diary that are non-negotiables, where I bring Rhea into rugby on a Wednesday or whatever the case might be. I'm making more of a conscious effort, but definitely haven't nailed it yet. And there's no such, anyone who says they've nailed it is lying. They're either highly underachieving or they're just lying.
Yeah, I don't think work-life balance is a thing. I think whatever chapter of life you are in, one takes priority over the other. And if you want to set yourself up and your family up for the future, whether it's financially or in any other metric, there's going to be sacrifices you're going to have to make. And I think also, like, for your kids growing up, they might think, oh well, why is daddy never home? Daddy doesn't love us. But they're going to grow up and say, oh, I get it, thank you, daddy. You know what I mean? Like it's like you said, it's the price you have to pay. It's delayed gratification for the long-term game that you're playing.
Yeah, and it's just, I suppose, yeah, like it's just making incremental improvements along the way on it.
But you're very cautious of that, and you're very aware of it already, which is a good thing.
It's a good thing, yeah. And like there's other areas, like I mean, like
how old are you now?
I'm 34.
Not even halfway through your life.
No, I hope not.
Jimmy, so there's
I do wonder though, but no.
There's still room to fuck up and start from scratch, even if you had to. Like there's
and like I definitely don't. I don't put as many pressures on myself. I try not to, at least in any core area of life. As in, I talk like this core areas in everyone's life. You can't get away from. You've got your work and career. That's what makes the wheels turn, right? You've got your finances, and like life's not all about money, but money allows the wheels to keep moving.
It does.
Right?
Money allows you to live life how you want to.
And you got your family and your relationships, and then you've got your health, right?
The most important, arguably.
Yeah, but if you don't have that, you've nothing, right? And that's probably the one area of all the four. Like I think of my work side of life, I'm pretty happy I'm on the right trajectory of what I'm doing there. Finances always could be better, but it helps to know what I know about finances and managing your money. We'll be okay on that, right? And then family, I've made a real effort over the last year and a half on that to get that pillar of my life working really well and working well in amongst the other pillars of life. The fourth one is the health, right? playing rugby, it's casual. I try to go to the gym, but it's the one that I always allow to fall behind the others. I always prioritize the other three areas. So it's the one thing I just haven't cracked. And but I tell myself, well, you're never going to have all four humming at any one time. But that's just an excuse.
That is an excuse. I think it's totally achievable to have all of them. But it takes work and it takes daily effort.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I actually just made a post about this earlier. It doesn't take as much effort as people think, right? Whether that's your health, your fitness, your family, your finances, it's not as complicated or difficult as you think. All it takes is consistency and effort, right? Yeah. And the thing with your health is like staying on top of your fitness improves everything else. It improves your ability to spend quality time with your kids. It improves your focus. It improves your mental clarity. It improves your productivity. So if that's not in order, everything else will suffer, arguably, right? And even if you can dedicate 45 minutes a day, whether it's in the morning, at lunchtime, or in the evening, to do some sort of vigorous exercise that really gets your heart rate going, that gets the sweat going, and that just gets your body moving and allows your mind to switch off from everything else as well, that's all it takes. And then the hardest part, like, because it's easy to commit yourself to something for 45 minutes to an hour a day. The hardest thing is to commit yourself for the other 23 hours, which is the food.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's where people struggle, and it doesn't matter how hard you train. It doesn't matter how much you train. If your food's not in order, if your lifestyle is not in check, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair point.
You know.
Yeah, and like I couldn't disagree with any of that. I mean, like the reality is what gets in the way of getting to that, and where I'm at is excuses, and it's like, you know, everyone has to look at themselves in the mirror, myself included. If you're falling short on any one of the, you know, the key pillars in life, you know, there's only one person that can change anything. You know, if you're not in the job you want to be in, if you're not earning the money you want to be earning, you can blame everyone else. You can blame the government. You can blame everything that everyone isn't doing for you, or you can grab it by the horns and you can do something about it. And the same goes for every other key part of your life, and there's no two ways about it. I've tried to make more of a concerted effort, even if it's once a week getting into the gym, and then I've got my rugby twice a week. Then that's more than I was doing a year ago. It's still not enough.
Incremental steps.
It's still not enough. But like, you know, you're right though. You either continue to make excuses or you do something about it.
Take accountability and take action.
Yeah, and where you're consistent and being able to be so consistent in other areas of your life, I often say to myself, how can I not be that consistent in this area of my life? Well, I think then you don't know. But then I look at my life and I'm like, God, from the outside in, it might look like it's ticking along, it's consistent. And I'd argue that, Jesus, it's all over the place. Every day is just a rat race, and it's great, and I love it. But it's all over the place, and like depending on how the day goes, we might not sit down to have dinner. Like last night, we had dinner at 10:25. We ended up settling on an omelette because we weren't prepared. We didn't even have tea bags to make a cup of tea. We didn't have cereal for the next day. And it was too late to go to the shops, and you know, and you're just like, God, it's you know, there's certain areas of our life that are just so busy that then we're just not on top of things that would be nice to be on top of, because it's nice to come down to a clean kitchen, it's nice to come down to an empty wash basket, but it's hard to, you know, it's the sum of the parts. It is hard to stay on top of everything at all times, but then you can make excuses, you know.
Yeah, but no, it is like, and I've learned that myself, is like, it's very easy to be in shape but be financially broke and be, you know, emotionally underdeveloped, because all you're doing is going to the gym. Like, for example, you could be a professional athlete, that's all you do. On the contrary, then it's very easy to be financially rich but your health is shit. But like you said, to have all four, it takes work, and it takes a daily effort, and it is achievable, but again, I said it already, it just takes consistency. What advice would you give to yourself if you were to go back in time? And if you were to do it all over again, take the same path, what would you say to yourself?
I said it earlier. I'd take the pressure off. I'd release the pressure valve, the weight of expectancy. You know, and it was largely coming from within. You know, so I have nobody to blame for any pressure that I've ever been under, in, you know, throughout my kind of working life in particular. I would probably say, you know, you've not done too badly. You've done okay, but you know, if you were to go back and repeat it all, which I wouldn't particularly want to have to do, to be honest, I would just say enjoy it a little bit more, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, because before you know it, I'm 34, and I honestly I'm still very young, right? But like, time is flying by at a rate of knots, and I will say that I'm definitely in a space where I'm enjoying the journey. I'm consciously trying to enjoy being in the moment while on the journey. And there's things I look back on, and different kind of highlight moments over the years that I look back on and I say, geez, that was a really key moment. And what I've learned over the years is to identify those key moments in the moment. You know, we were on holiday recently, and I turned around and there was 17 of us around the dinner table, right? And I turned around and I said to Louise, I said, there's a high probability that this group won't be away on holiday all together at the one time again. Like, and it was one of those in the moments where I said, geez, this is a really special moment.
It's a beautiful skill to learn to realize those moments.
But
in
I didn't
the moment.
have it at the time, and you're young, and you're as you say, emotionally underdeveloped, and you have a lot of things to learn in the years ahead. And I probably did a lot of growing up very quickly between the age of 24 and 30 in particular. Like those 5-6 years, there was a lot of pressure and brought on myself a lot in a lot of ways. But I'd say to Annie, and I love speaking to, you know, be it kids coming out of school or going through college, I'd be kind of saying, just enjoy the process. Don't worry about what's coming next, because no one knows what's coming next. And even if you do think you know what you're going to do, you know,
life has different plans. Life
can just flip things on its head, and then plans change. Just enjoy the moment, enjoy these years, because you don't get them back again. And like, you know, I did enjoy them, but I would say that I didn't go through them pressure free, because I was constantly trying to figure out what's next and am I going to make it.
What was the pivotal point where you did learn that lesson? Because for me, I had to learn the hard way, and I recently got a tattoo about this, which says that you never appreciate or understand the value of a moment until it becomes a memory. My life has had some incredible moments up until this day, and looking back at those moments, I did not realize how amazing they were, and I did not realize what I had or who I had. And it wasn't until I lost that and it passed me by that I sat down and I said, oh fuck, I'm never gonna have that again. I'm never going to be able to have that conversation with that person again. I'm never going to see that sunset ever again. Like, that's gone. It's in the past. And it wasn't until this year that I learned that.
What triggered that out of interest?
Good question. I suppose losing everything I ever cared about. And losing a lot of people that were in my life, losing selling my business, you know, kind of sitting on the floor and asking myself, okay, what now? When it was just me, and there was no one to talk to about my struggles, there was no one to share my victories with, it was just me. And it was the moment when I realized it was always just you. Everything else was a bonus. Everyone else was a bonus. Everything that ever happened to you was a highlight, but it was always just you. And I had to learn that. You can't rely on everyone else to have your back if you don't have your own back in the first place. Right? And Also, all my life I've chased something, and I've never appreciated anything I've ever done. It doesn't matter how difficult it was. No matter what I did, I never gave myself a pat on the back and said, "Good job," like, "Well done for doing that thing." It was always like, "Okay, grand, next." I did not care how amazing it was, right? It was always just head down, onto the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And then this year I was like, okay, but where does this end? Because until this day, you've done so many different things, and you've tried so many different ways of doing this whole thing called life, and you're still not happy. So what is the purpose here? What is the reason you get up every morning? And it was finding that purpose for me, and finding myself, and realizing that all of your problems and all of your answers to your questions are within. They're not in the new car, in the new house, in the next holiday, in the next girlfriend who you think is going to be better than the one you just have. It's all within you. And I think if you can reach that point in your life, and that takes work, and it takes a lot of self-analysis, and it requires you to swallow your ego, right? Put your ego in the bin, and look at yourself objectively, and accept who you are for who you are. If you can do that, everything else from that point on will have much deeper meaning and purpose and significance, even the smallest things in life.
That's a lot of learning.
It is, and it never stops.
Yeah, and you don't switch a light bulb off, or you don't flick a switch and then all of a sudden you've figured out what the core issues are, and then they're not dealt with. That's probably a bit of a healing period to figure it out, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, I suppose...
and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, it's funny. I suppose my journey's probably been a bit more gradual, in the sense that, when I say that, I mean, I can't say I've had... You get these moments every now and again, you're like, God, I really should have enjoyed that particular moment a little bit better. But, like, I can't say there's been ever... I can't say I've ever had that light switch, right? And because I feel like... And I, again, other people from the outside in will look and say, geez, you've cracked it. You've gotten there. You've done, And I'm kind of like, well, no, like, I'm still doing a lot of the unglamorous stuff that needs to be done to keep the show on the road, to keep things moving. There's nothing particularly sexy about 90% of what I do, and maybe the 10% looks great, but, like, it's still, like, what I'm doing now doesn't feel a whole lot different to what I was doing 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when it's still, every day is still a bit of a graft. It's just about maybe enjoying the journey more along the way. And so, rather than having, I suppose my big trigger point was when we figured out Reen was on his way. So that was my real trigger point in life. It's probably the single biggest shift in how I've had to think about things, and it's put a lot of immediate pressure on. I could keep going back to it, but, like, it is the single most pressurized point in time in my life, bar none. But it's the single best thing, and it's the thing I needed. It's the one thing that I needed that I never knew I needed.
It's a blessing in disguise, yeah.
And it wasn't like, as I said, I was lucky to go to a good school, and it was not the norm for a 24-year-old to have a kid coming along the way. That wasn't the norm, and so I had very few people that I could pick up the phone to and say, this is where I'm at, like, any advice. None of my, well, actually only one of my peer group, unfortunately, probably my best friend, found himself in a similar enough position not long after me, and that was a blessing in disguise as well, because it allowed us to kind of bounce things off each other. But like, that was my, like, my trigger moment. It was at the point in my life where I said, I need to get my shit together. And from there, I got my shit together under a lot of pressure over the subsequent years. And then Fionn was born a couple of years later. We got married, we bought our first house. Still a lot of pressure along the way, because we still were where we needed to be to have a little bit more comfort, a little bit of pressure off us. But it's about enjoying the journey, because the journey doesn't get any easier. The process doesn't get any easier. It's still, it's still, 90% of what I do is not glamorous. You have to learn to enjoy that 90% unglamorous
Enjoy the
stuff.
struggle.
You have to enjoy the process, because the days are long, the years, as much as they fly by in isolation, days are long, the working weeks are long. You have to learn to enjoy it. You need to.
There's no escaping it.
No, but it has to be done. It's a necessary. It's not. I don't call it a necessary evil. It's just one of those things. You have to do it to keep the wheel spinning. And you might as well enjoy it. You might as well find something. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, pack it in, because then you have a choice to make, and then you go and find something over time. Learn about yourself. Figure yourself out. What are your interests? Try apply those interests and try and make money from those interests. And so I'd be like very keen when my life maybe settles down a little bit to go back and work with kids in their late teens, early 20s, and maybe mentor them and just say, look, you know what, don't worry about the next 5-10 years, don't worry about your next step,
just try shit.
just enjoy.
Try shit. See what I say often is your 20s are for figuring out what you don't want to do.
It's not bad advice, yeah.
Yeah. And don't stay by the one thing that you do try because it's the first best thing that comes along and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this. And there's always a way out.
And don't feel like you have to follow a blueprint of life where you do your college degree, you
societal
job,
standards,
you have to buy your house, you have your kid, you get married, or whatever order you want to do them in. It's life's a good learning. It's a constant. And what's the saying? Every day is a school day.
It is. You can learn something every day. What financial advice would you give to young people in their 20s, or daily habits which they can implement, which will both allow them to enjoy their life to a degree, but also give them that financial flexibility for when that money is needed? Because personally, I don't believe in stacking cash under your mattress like in the old days, but having some money there for when there is an opportunity that you can cash in on, you have it, right?
Yeah, like again, the one thing you don't have in your early 20s is the wisdom that you need to be doing the right things at all times, right? That's the learning part. I'd kind of say to people, do you know what? Be kind to yourself. So if you work hard, and I would encourage anyone in their early 20s, get a job, deal with the public in whatever capacity, just get a job early, learn how to deal with people, earn a few quid, and then enjoy it. So that's the first thing, is always, no matter what you earn, always have a pocket within that is yours to enjoy. You need that reward, right? Second thing is, learn to live without a certain percentage of your income. And there's no defined percentage that's right or wrong.
It's individual.
You need to learn to live without a certain amount of money every time you get paid.
So put away a certain percentage of it, pretend like it doesn't exist.
Pretend like it doesn't exist, because your future self will thank you for it. Whether that's a car tire that needs replacing, whether that's a holiday you want to go on, whether it's a house deposit that you want to accumulate over the years, you'll be far better off for having that money accumulating over the years.
Even if it's 10% of your weekly wage.
Anything. No one should be living from every penny of what they earn, no matter what stage in life they're at. You have to learn to live without money, because at some point or another, whether you're renting or paying a mortgage, that's money that you need to be able to live without. Whether it's putting money away for retirement, and no one ever really can get their head into the mindset of turning 65 or 70 and clocking off and needing to have a pot of money to then live off. But to get to that stage and to have a comfortable retirement in the future, you got to be able to live without money along the way. And it's just about living without a certain amount of what you earn. But within all of that, though, make sure that you have that pocket where you reward yourself, because that's what keeps you going. It's not about being frugal, it's about being able to live without a certain part of your money every month.
And money comes and goes as well.
Money's money.
Sometimes you make more, sometimes you make less. Sometimes you lose your job, sometimes you get a promotion. Sometimes You spend less, sometimes you spend more. It's never stationary.
And I would say a lot of my generation and the generations coming through want instant gratification. They want to maintain a certain social norm of
Image.
I'm going to these nice places, I'm eating out in these nice restaurants.
I think Instagram is to blame for that at large.
And like, in the reality is, it's putting pressures on every other part of their finances, and they're all over the place. And you know, we don't have to have it all instantly. Get the core things right. You know, if you're buying a house, so what if you can't afford a flat screen TV on your wall? So what if you don't have we didn't have a couch in our first house for the first 3 months that we moved in. We slept on an airbed for the first 2 months when we moved in. That's great. That's fine, because we had the most important thing. Get the important things right. Live without a certain amount of your money every month and get used to it, because that's life, and you're going to have that right the way through.
Yeah, and it's, if you can enjoy that struggle, going back to what we talked about earlier, when you do have that bed, when you do have that flat screen TV, when you do have the car that you've always wanted, it's going to feel so much more rewarding and rich in having achieved that. Because if everything was given to you, right, if you were to win the lotto overnight, sure, fantastic, I wouldn't say no to a couple of mil, right? Let's not kid ourselves.
You and me both.
But I think, honestly, my life, I would stop doing, you know, whatever I'm doing now that requires me to earn money for maybe 3 months, and then after that I would say, okay, this is boring. I need some purpose every day, because without it you become fucking depressed.
Yeah, and look, as I say, money is critically important to keep the wheels spinning.
It is,
right? But it can't be your motive.
Yeah, it's not
for
the
getting
end
out
all
of bed
be
every
all,
day.
yeah.
So like, for me, and everyone's motives will be different. For me, I get up in the morning and the first thing I see are my kids and my wife, and then I know, okay, stakes are high. We've set the bar where we set the bar. It doesn't drop from here. We have to push on. We have to every day strive to keep the bar there or moving. You have to keep moving. And for me, my motives are not exclusively financial. Because if they were, my intentions in everything that I do would be completely flawed. I can't say specifically what it is. I have a hard work ethic in me. It's ingrained in me. It's been ingrained in me from the minute that I could understand everything that my parents did for us. It's ingrained in me since the day I worked my first day in Ireland. It's all I know. If you've a strong work ethic, it just is normal.
Was this something your parents enforced on you as a kid?
No, not necessarily. No. And you know, I grew up in a pretty modest household. My mum was a housewife. She had her hands full with us at home, and my dad was a teacher. So nothing particularly glamorous. We had enough, and we were very lucky in being able to be given really good opportunities, because my parents worked really hard to make those opportunities happen for us.